Hello, this is Stephen Nojiri, and this is a video about Shinobi. It's a short video, I'll try to keep it short, but I want to accomplish the following things. I want to show how documents can change over time, or rather, I won't show you a document that's changed per se, but I will show you how the material has changed from one document to another document. And the second thing is I want to show how the thief shinobi is not the same as the spy shinobi, but that these two concepts were merged in the later 1600s. Well, technically, the merging began in the early 1600s, but it was completed in the later 1600s. And once this happened, documents can become hard to track, or the heritage of the tradition can become hard to track after this change. So if you haven't watched my What is Shinobi video, this is goes into this in great detail. So if you haven't watched it, this video might be a little confusing. So to start, we're going to use two copies of the Gunpo Jioshu and a third document called the Seto Kokurogake, or the Shinobi Kokurogake. And the two kanji that I want you to look out for are the kanji for Seto and Shinobi. Now this isn't the usual kanji for Seto, but this is the kanji for thief, for sneak thief, that gets used in military documents at this time period. But now we're using the word Seto, but you need to know it's actually going to be pronounced Shinobi, and that's why I have it on big letters on the screen. Both will be pronounced Shinobi, which it understandably could be confusing. Alright, so let's start with talking about the Seto Kokurogake, or the Shinobi Kokurogake. So when I first obtained this document, I was really excited because, personally, I have a deep interest in lock picking and lock bypassing techniques in modern day and the old Japanese locks and the old Japanese doors. Anybody who's familiar with my work knows that I used to demonstrate the techniques for picking old Japanese locks, basically to anybody who cared to watch. However, when I began examining the document, so I thought, Seto Kokurogake, like, oh man, this is going to be like this great manual of lock picking and all this stuff, right? But, however, when I began examining the document, I found out instantly I recognized it. It was basically the quote unquote shinobi, the Seto sections from the Gunpo Jioshu. They were the order was rearranged a little bit, but it was instantly recognizable that it was the Gunpo Jioshu. But I did notice something else that was very odd. The kanji for spy shinobi was being used instead of the kanji for shinobi, the kana for shinobi, because if you're not familiar with the Gunpo Jioshu, it only uses the kana for shinobi, the pronunciation of shinobi. So you have kana, and then or it uses sneak thief, seto. But again, the hiragana says it's pronounced shinobi. So you see the kana for shinobi, shinobi, but you never see the kanji for blade over heart in the text. Okay, so but in this document, the Seto Kokurogake, everywhere I'm seeing the kanji for spy shinobi, blade over heart, right, over and over and over again, and it's weird, right? So it's weird because even though these terms, these kanji become interchangeable in the 1600s, I know that in the original document, they are clearly talking about militarized thieves, not spies. So I'm going to go ahead and put up on the screen. You're going to see these are two different versions of the Gunpo Jioshu, and you can clearly see that the kana is used for the kana is shinobi, and you see the hiragana next to on the far right. You can see the kanji for sneak thief, seto, right? But you can see the hiragana next to it, shinobi. Okay, so this is all, it's all being pronounced shinobi, but it's clearly discussing militarized thieves. So again, here's two samples of two different copies of the Gunpo Jioshu, and you see it is not using the kanji Blade over heart, it's using it's using kana. And over here, it's clearly, and through the entire document, it clearly uses sneak thief. So, and then again, you can see next to sneak thief, you can see that it's pronounced shinobi. So, all right, that's done. That's been shown. So now you're looking at that same section, but you're looking at it from the Seto Kokorogake document. And immediately I say, wait, what? The kanji for Seto Shinobi has been replaced by the kanji for Spy Shinobi. What? And Shinobi written in kana and or Seto have been replaced with Spy Shinobi in many places. So you can see on the far right, it clearly has Blade over Heart Shinobi. That's not supposed to be there. And throughout the body of the text, you can see a circle in multiple places. What? It's been replaced with Blade over Heart Shinobi. What? That's not how the document goes. That's not accurately reflecting the heritage of the document. And then over on the far left, what? What is that? The kana shinobi's been replaced by the kanji for Seto. Well, what's going on here, right? Like, what is happening? And so I'm going to put representation up of both. So on the left, you have the Seto Kokorogake, and on the right, you have the Gunpo Jioshu. Okay, one of the copies of the Gunpo Jioshu. Now remember, I showed you on a previous screen that I had two different copies and they matched. So I'm not going to put all of them up here, but I'm just going to use this one and this one. So on the right, Gunpo Jioshu, on the left, Seto Kokorogake. And then in the purple circle, you can see that on the right circle, you'll see on the right side, on the Gunpo Joshu side, you'll see a purple circle. And in the purple circle, I went ahead and also used red. I should have used purple, but I used red. And that's where Shinobi is written with kana. But then you'll see on the left that kana is turned into Seto, like it is now using the kanji for militarized thief. Okay. It's odd that they would do that. However, the heritage aligns. So it's literally just using the kanji instead of the kana. Okay, that's fine. But but on the rights, but on the in the red, now we have an issue, right? Now we have a problem because on the red, you actually find that the heritage has been changed. So the kanji should read militarized thief shinobi, but it's been changed to read spy shinobi. And this makes sense in the context, but if you didn't know the context, you would easily misunderstand what's going on in this document. And you might think that this text has the spy heritage when it does not. This text only has the militarized thief heritage. But because something's wonky with the kanji, you could easily get confused. So again, if you haven't watched my video on what is shinobi, you probably be at a little bit of a disadvantage here. I spend about 40 minutes going into great detail on this, but I'll try to capture the main points to conclude this video. There's two very different types of shinobi. Even though the sounds that you make with your mouth, shinobi, sounds the same, the concept, the context, the heritage, the tradition, the history is very different. So it's two very different things. They just happen to be pronounced the same. You have what happened anyway? So in summary, what happened here is that in the original document, the Gunpo Jioshu, you have a discussion of militarized thieves, the thief shinobi, who specialize in covert entrance and exit with lots of damage done in between. This is a tradition more associated with Koshuryu, Hojo-ryu, etc., etc. And this also appears to be the origin of the Iga Koga ninja myth. Now, that is a very loaded phrase, and that's for another day. But yes, the region of Iga existed. Yes, the region of Koga existed. Yes, they had militarized thief shinobi. But the myth, in a summation, the myth is essentially we will that Iga and Koga applies to all shinobi, and that's the myth. It's not that Iga and Koga never existed. It's that Iga and Koga applies to all. That's the mistake. That's the myth. So the Gunpo Jioshu is about militarized thieves. It's that heritage, right? The Gunpo Jioshu is not the heritage of the spy shinobi tradition of the Tada Genji Kusunokiru Southern Court. Those are spy shinobi. Those are not militarized thief shinobi. Two different heritages. So that's why the original document, the Gunpo Jioshu, used kana and it used the thief seto kanji. So what happens is in the 1600s, many samurai scholars, ronin teachers, heads of academies, etc., they wanted to bring together various traditions. Um, Again, in the What is Shinobi video, I go into detail using Kusunoki-ryu and Hojo-ryu and Kosho-ryu as examples. This is all explained in great detail in that video. We also talk about a very famous author named Fujibayashi. It's called Fujibayashi Sensei, author of the Bansen Shukai, and he really finalized that Edo period ninja concept by blending the spy shinobi and the thief shinobi, the two very different things, and turning instead of them being two different things, reimagining them as two halves of a new concept. So this sort of Edo period shinobi, a third type of shinobi, this blending of these two different shinobi became yonin and inin. So instead of being two separate things, they became two halves of a new coin. Once this smashing together took place, lots of confusion also came about from this. And this is people often get the heritage of the thief shinobi confused with the heritage of the spy shinobi. And people start switching out terms for spy shinobi because it's all been mashed together. And this is where the sort of Iga Koga myth, quote unquote, the issue becomes a myth. The myth is that Iga and Koga are the best of shinobi for all time, right? They were the best. But that does not apply to the spy shinobi. That is entangled with the heritage of the militarized thieves, but that is not the heritage of the spy shinobi. When you're looking at Kusunoki and Tada, Genji and Southern Court, and they're talking about Blade Over Heart shinobi, they are not talking about Iga and Koga. They're just not. Now, in the 1600s, as we know, the Iga and Koga from the militarized spy background heritage becomes so popular that eventually everybody starts mentioning Iga and Koga, even if they don't have anything to do with them. But that's where the myth, quote unquote, of Iga and Koga really comes from. Is they are part of one heritage, but then they start getting applied to everybody's heritage, even though it has nothing to do with them. And thus we arrive at the issue that we have with the Seto Kokurogake, or you could read it as Shinobi Kokurogake. But remember that kanji is not spy shinobi, because the document's not about spies, it's about militarized thieves. So, Seto Kokurogake. But as I've shown, it is the thief section for the Gunpo Jioshu, but it's just had somebody changing the kanji around, reflecting the mishmash of the two heritages in the late 1600s. The key point here, the key point is that not all shinobi are actually spy shinobi. It is actually very important to learn the heritage of whatever shinobi you're studying or researching, because the spy heritage is very different from the militarized thief heritage. But I want to make sure this point is clear. I feel compelled to make sure that this point is clear. While the final mishmash of the two heritages is complete in the latter part of the 1600s, the mishmash begins to take place in the mid-1600s. So, again, if you haven't watched the What is Shinobi video, but going back to that part about Hojo Ujinaga, we see him use the kanji for spy shinobi, but he doesn't use it for spy shinobi. He uses it for a hybrid idea that he comes up with. He's a Kosho-ryu master, but he's also really taken by the Kusunoki-ryu viewpoint. So he wants to somehow create something from blending Kosho-ryu with Kusunoki-ryu. For example, Hojo Ujinaga, he likes a lot of the very hardcore military aspects of Koshiru, but he likes the worldview and a lot of the other aspects of Kusunoki-ryu. He also doesn't really care for a lot of the divination that comes in Koshiru. Um, so anyway, he creates Hojoru, which is basically his selections of, so he takes from both schools and he blends and creates new things, etc., etc. So in his school he uses the kanji for spy shinobi, but he uses it for a sort of new concept, a long range recon scout that's not Monomi, but is not a spy either. Anyway, I discuss it more in the other video. But this takes place in the late 1630s and the 1640s. So already we're beginning to see people begin to blend and hybridize. Now I should also say that the Kusunoki Fuden's student who takes over his school, Yui Shosetsu, which some of you may or may not know, Yui Shosetsu is his sort of well-known name. He actually also went by Kusunoki Shosetsu because he took over for Kusunoki Fuden. He didn't just take over Kusunoki Fuden school, but he also like Mokoyushi'd into the family. So he became known also as Kusunoki Shosetsu. So a little bit of history there for you. Um, but we refer to him as Yui Shosetsu because that's really his name. But anyway, long story short, getting off topic here, he actually wrote a very long piece criticizing all of these hybridizations. I actually made a video a long time ago on a channel that's now long gone, but it was his criticisms of, it was basically criticizing different traditions that were taking place around the late 1630s and 1640s. He actually wrote a document criticizing the amount of hybridization and alterations and sort of the changes people were making to a lot of the traditions because they were wanting to blend this or blend this with that or change this. So Yui Shosetsu actually in the Kusunoki Ryugungaku, there's a document, there's actually a text which criticizes, goes through and points out all the different flaws with this sort of hybridization. But regardless of that, this hybridization was actually very common in the Edo period. And so it begins in the 1630s, 1640s, and we see it really sort of hit its peak, especially with shinobi, hits its peak in the latter part of the 1600s. So again, we're back to the key point, right? Simple and direct. Learn the heritage of whatever shinobi tradition you are studying or researching. Is it spy or is it militarized thief? Two different heritages. These have two different heritages. There's also a current trend for many researchers to try to say that shinobi or ninja was made up in the 1600s, and this is false. All right, so directly that statement is false. Shinobi spies and shinobi militarized thieves are found in pre-Edo sources, so it's on the surface level directly it's an absurd statement. It's an absurd claim. But this claim is rooted in the fact that the 1600s did give rise to the third shinobi. That is the hybrid shinobi concept that blends together the spy and the militarized thief, something that comes about in the 1600s. So prior to the mishmash shinobi of the 1600s, shinobi existed as two distinct concepts with two different views and two very different heritages, very different traditions. And that is it for this video. As always, these videos are meant to be brief and they are meant to inspire you or to give you a starting off point. The material in this video is copywritten by me, so please do not steal this material. Please do not take it. Please do not copy it. Again, I hope it inspires you. I hope that it sets you off on your own investigations and explorations, but please be respectful.